Before I pulled my hamstring, shit you not, I was in the fucking toilet, looking at myself in the mirror, going, are you being a pussy or are you going to pull your hamstring? And I was like, you're being a fucking pussy. And I pulled the set and I pulled my hamstring. So I was like, fuck, I was right. Well, welcome back to MSC Systems YouTube channel. Today, I've got my good friend John Down from Strength Forge. He's a strength and conditioning coach, obviously in the strongman scene, just like me. And I've asked John to come down to help me out today to do a bit of an assessment on me, on a couple of movements. Mainly because if you've seen the old video on pulling out of Europe's Strongest Man last year, I tore my hamstring before Europe's, my left hamstring. And then I had a decent prep for OSG in terms of the hinge pattern. But after that, and just recently, my hamstrings and hips haven't felt right. And I tore my hamstring a couple of weeks ago. I've had some physio off Ollie, who's the physio at Reperform, local to me, that helps me out. But I wanted to get my actual movements assessed in the gym. This is something that I do for my athletes, but if any of you guys coach, you'll know what it's like. Sometimes you can be a little bit lazy when it comes to doing it yourself. And I really respect John and his knowledge. Sometimes I do struggle because I've luckily got a good reputation as a good coach. And sometimes people, they don't give me it brutally honest, if that makes sense. They kind of like sugarcoat it or kind of like just tell me, oh, it's fine, Shane, or whatever. And I just want somebody that's going to look at me and tell me straight what they potentially think is going on, so that I can make some adjustments to my training, because I'm obviously doing something wrong. When you're training yourself, you've got so much past data that you kind of like end up missing something that's right in front of you, because you've already got all this stuff to look at and you're missing what's right in front of you. So John's kind of like able to look at me with a clean slate and do some assessments on me and look at my hinge mechanics, because I'm very resilient everywhere, but there's something going on in my deadlift that's making me fragile throughout the hamstrings. I'm hoping that I get a little bit of better direction with the assistance exercises that I should be prioritizing, and also some kind of like structural balance type ratios that I should be looking at to maximize. I already actually altered my deadlift position myself last week, and I think I found something that's much better for me. So I'm going to get John to look at that, and either he's hopefully going to say that's okay, or maybe make some changes to it. John will be chatting some strength and conditioning nerd stuff, maybe some of you will enjoy, and he'll take me through some tests and assessments, and then we'll do some deadlifts and see if he can take a look at my deadlift form and make any changes and hopefully stop me tearing hamstrings. I pulled this left hamstring for Europe's, and then I pulled it again 3 weeks ago, but I just feel twisted now. Right. And I feel like when I'm pulling, I feel really exposed through my hamstrings and hips when I pull. Fucking my body's like working like this or something. Yeah.
The temptation can be, particularly if you coach yourself or program yourself, to lean into the peak with your assistance movements and your variations to allow you to extract more strength. Whereas for people that are more neural like Jane, sometimes it's better to implement variations that undo the damage that you might cause to like your function, for example, in the larger movement. I had this with Paddy when he did the shield carry. He's capable of generating so much external rotation that he was literally walking with his feet like that, right? And he can just keep pushing like that because he's as neural as he is. But then the consequence of that is 4 or 5 weeks after, like you've always said, that your nervous system remembers what it's done most recently, or like it's the most stressful scenario. So we had to work on all of his assistance movements to regain function.
Hi, I'm John. So as Shane mentioned, I'm here today to give a little bit of an assessment on him. Strength and conditioning coach, myself, full-time strength nerd and strongman, to be honest with you. I feel the experience that I've had to be able to come in from a clinical perspective, which that's like my original training was with frail populations and elderly people. So it sounds like worlds away from Shane, but being able to combine that with injury rehab and then top-end performance, the principles are actually very similar, and it's just a case of understanding the testing methods for athletes like Shane, and seeing how the output that he can create in the expression of strength relative to the ability to control it. That's kind of where my area of expertise is. So the bridge between strength as the ability to produce force, stability as the ability to resist it, trying to make sure that the two match up so that people don't end up snapping everything off, being too strong for their own good, which is kind of Shane's situation at the moment. So what we'll do to start with is look at structure. So I mentioned earlier, I use a 4S model. So structures, can he get into any kind of position? So one of the things that we'll look at doing is establishing whether he can get into the positions that he does need to load, how much prep is required from a standpoint of neural flow to be able to control it. Once we've done the structural assessments, the test will feed into then stability. So yes, he might be able to get into a position, but can he actually maintain that position when we challenge him through a few different what are called like mechanical demand factors. So this might be load, which is really simple. It might just be simply shifting the center of mass, so doing things like contralateral loading, that type of thing. Basically, can he maintain the integrity of the position that he's opened up, and what is it that he's sensitive to in that situation that might elicit any kind of dysfunction. From there, we'll go into size. Now this sounds like kind of an overarching topic, but essentially it's isolated muscle strength. So you can use something called Oxford muscle grading. You basically want to use a 5-point scale which assesses, like I said, isolated muscle strength. So something as simple as like abduction at the shoulder. A 5 would be the ability to resist external pressure as well as gravity, and then a 1 or like the lower end of the scale is when the muscle doesn't fire at all. What I'm looking for here with someone like Shane is, first of all, he should be a 5 across the board. Every single muscle in isolation should be strong, but it's more about imbalances from either side. He could resist a lot of external pressure on this side, but as soon as I put a little bit of pressure on his left arm, it just drops. That's going to present when he presses. So it's something that needs to be addressed. In that scenario, that's where we'd look at the variations in the assistance exercises that he might do. As odd as it might sound, hopefully we'll find a glaring weakness, because then it's really easy to exploit. So it's going to be fun to assess a freak like Shane. Maybe just let this side fall down. So keep this pulled up, yeah. Just let this side fall down. Okay. From there, right, there's no real dysfunction. So healthy hip, you should be feeling a little bit of resistance in like your rec fem there. Same thing, just let it fall down. Okay, so about the same. With no kind of, okay, you should just be getting a little bit of resistance in your adductor there, so exactly the same thing. You feel your adductor there, yeah?
For my adductor, I'm seeing a little bit of
pinching, yeah. There's definitely, okay, there's definitely a little bit less structure or like mobility on that side, so that should just be quad at the front. Yeah, anything in your lower back at all?
like a 1.
Anything there?
That one's mainly good.
So like I mentioned a minute ago about that 4S model, it doesn't necessarily occur linearly. It depends on the response of the test. So like now we'll jump into some like Oxford grading. Can you, staying in everything completely still, okay, just go into hip extension. I just want you to push your heel, like lift your thigh off the floor and push your heel up into my hand, yeah? Okay, nice crack there, good, okay. Go again. Go again. So when you do that, can you feel your erector, glute, quad, hamstring or adductor more? Or can you not really feel anything? Is it just like pressure?
It felt more hamstring.
Okay, okay. Strength is expressed primarily through sagittal plane, stability through your frontal plane, and then power through the transverse. So when we're looking at the stability test now, it's very much going to be a case of what your hip abductors are doing as well as your adductors, rather than just straight up and down, because you've not really got any dysfunction in your hip flex or anything like that. So I'm going to push down here now, and I want you to resist me, okay? But keep everything else still. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, brilliant. Yep, that's fine. Can you all right? Where was that?
Left side.
Left side adductor, interesting, okay.
My left side erector's cramped.
Okay, was it sharp on the inception of the contraction or when it relaxed? Or
No, pretty much as soon as
as soon as it did, okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, that's fine, relax, that's fine. Here, you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, relax, good. 3, 2, 1, go. There you go. That's absolutely shite, that mate. So that left glute med is quite shocking. If it's that much of a discrepancy, it will manifest itself in 1 or 2 movements. If I'm going to say anything, it would be, and that's what we'll see with the unilateral stuff. You've got your glute med QL co-contraction from the posterior sling. So if your glute med on that left side is as weak as it is, or unstable as it is, should I say, because strength, always remember, strength's the ability to produce force, stability is the ability to resist it. Neurologically, they're two literal polar opposites. So a strong muscle isn't always a stable one. If the glute med isn't resisting it, every time you enter that kind of stance phase, and as you go to transfer that, like the weight acceptance as they call it, when you go into your swing, it's your glute med that's obviously supposed to stabilize your pelvis. Your QL is holding it up. So if you imagine it as like 50-50, if that isn't keeping your hip, it's called a Trendelenburg gait, where if you ever see someone and their hips kind of shoot off to the side, you can have an overactive QL on that right side that is that feeling you're getting of it kind of being pulled up into position because your left glute med is not doing what it's supposed to do. We'll see how it manifests itself in some of the other movements, but it's such a discrepancy. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Put about 2 inches on my
Right,
quads
okay.
in the last 3 months, and even though I've been working on my all my hip extension gains have just been destroyed by my quads coming back.
Yeah, that's the anatomical constraint coming in because of your femur length is just set as it is. You've not got the world's longest femurs, so your quads are going to be hyper responders in that sense. That's just standard thing. In that scenario for you, if you are loading your quads as much as you are and it's going to pull you into anterior tilt, I would have a section of your hip extension work, only a section of it, maybe 50% or something, that is purely dedicated to pulling you back into posterior tilt, like you probably did.
Yeah, because
it's constantly exactly.
Driving this back with neutral hip.
Yeah.
And I was loading that, and that's got me to here, which is still not. Yeah,
there will be training phases where you can't cover all the bases. Of course, you've only got so much time, but like it's making sure that there's sections of your training where, right, I'm focusing on stability to undo what's happening at the hip flexor, and then there's every joint goes through a flexion arc, so it can be broken down into thirds. You've got your mid-range, which is where you express most of your strength. Nearly every single gym lift is mid-range, so like bench press. That's why people try and cut depth when they're squatting, that type of thing. And then you've got your lengthened and your shortened position. So as long as you're taking care of both of those ends of the spectrum, in that, like you talk about with your restoration blocks, then you find it.
I pulled 360 and I had that really good hinge block.
Yeah.
I was smashing fuck out of this gym. So I was hitting back extensions a lot. And reverse hyper and GHD. This is what we've got. And I was mainly doing a lot of that. I wasn't actually doing much hip extension.
No. You'll be in that situation where I know I keep circling back to it, but your expression of strength detracts so far away from your function, which is why it's always like a kind of ticking time bomb. So like a hip that functions well and has maximum kind of neural efficiency relative to your gait cycle is one that can fully extend, internally rotate. So from a standpoint of having the length through the hip flexor, but also, again, think back to reciprocal inhibition, also the strength of the glute to pull you into position. So for the amount of time that you spend in the opposite position, it's going to pull you away from that neural efficiency, isn't it? So
as well, everything I've just said, when I was training and I pulled that 360, I had less quad work, less squat work, and now I've increased that. Yeah, maybe this last training block has just been a bit too...
I bet if we actually sat down and looked through the whole training block, you'd see it's Pareto's law in it. So 20% of your input produces 80% of your output. There'll be a small discrepancy of work that you're spending in slightly too lengthened of a position that's pulling you away from having the stability on the opposite end. Because those 3 points again, so you've got your mid-range, lengthened range and shortened range, the more time you spend in that mid-range, which for you a squat is a mid-range because of your femur length, the more time you spend there, it literally goes like that over time. So then you have that, if imagine that is your margin of error, and when it falls out of those ranges and more exercises become lengthened, like for example when you're doing a lunge there, then those first couple of reps where you're going to get up off the floor, it's because your glutes go in, fuck, that's a deep position to be in, it's more like uncharted territory. And keep everything completely still, so no rotation through your torso, just literally a single arm row, okay? Good, and then back out again. Okay, and just do 5 reps like that for me, pal. Down. And just pay attention to if anything is changing when you're pulling in and back out again. Okay, relax. For how strong you are, it's not good enough, that, mate. You should be doing that with a 20 kilo plate on top of you. Same thing, where you go. Yep. Okay. Right, that's fine, Paul. Yeah, that's fine. Pointing your feet perfectly straight, yeah? Okay, yeah. There's definitely, it's not to the level of like a Trendelenburg, like where your hip is actually physically dropping off. But when it's on your left side, obviously leaning away slightly from the weight to try and compensate for it pulling you that way. Yeah, and it's that, again, just manifesting that lack of hip stability on that left side. It's, again, I'm going to really exaggerate this, but whenever you do like an offset carry of any kind, when you're walking, it's like that stance phase, So initial contact's absolutely fine. When you come to the transference of the weight, and all the weight is sitting on that left side, and you're supposed to be stable, yeah, and again that QL's supposed to kick in, what's happening is because that's pulling you that way, this foot actually comes across slightly. I'm really exaggerating it.
Because I felt like
Yeah.
I was walking.
Literally, yeah. It's literally, it's like you're going, again, over the top. But it's like you're walking fine and then going like that, off to one side. So, and at the moment, it's definitely an instability in that left glute med. Your right QL is overactive as a result. I think again, talking about like playing specific stuff, I think your erector pump and your hamstring pump in your left side is just overactivity because the glute isn't working properly. Do you know what I mean? I would like to see you deadlift if that's possible. When you do another set in a second, I want you to, you're not going to do this when you lift, I want you to over-extend at the top slightly and just tell me how it feels. So when you get to that top position, rather than being up and being there like that, I want you to be up, squeeze like that, and try and literally like tighten up your glute as much as possible, and just let me know what it feels like. We'll add a little bit more weight and see, but I think that's going to be a big thing for you, at least when you're first reloading, is almost counterintuitively trying to lengthen the range of motion slightly, even if it's just on your warm-ups, through the...
To keep that length of the hip.
Yeah, just through the top end. You don't need to do that in your top end stuff, like when you're getting freakishly strong, but again, in terms of your margin of error, it's coming full circle in his life, because I've learned all this from him, and then it's just going back round to it. But it's that thing of you spend more, if you want to get better in a position, spend more time there. Like, so it's that thing of, if you want to get stronger with your glutes in that top position, you need to be in that position, not slightly forward, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, because I think I prioritised my shortest range of motion lockout, and like you say, just the extra. Yeah. So it's only this, isn't it? Then I'm getting my hip fully through.
Exactly. You get literally every single decision that you make in that scenario where you are deciding to change something based on mechanical advantage, it comes at the cost of function. It's that simple. Like when you talk about a deadlift being the strongest deadlift position being a slightly protracted scapula to lengthen your lat, it's like that is 100% true, but the strongest deadlift isn't the most stable. So it's like you want to at least have the capacity to deadlift with not retraction necessarily, but with a closer or shorter lat length, let's say, and have the resistance there, which is why I'm a big fan of, and where the difference is between RDLs versus like a good morning, for example, especially if you're doing SSB good morning, there isn't any activation in the lat there really, is there, in the sense of things. So you're getting away with and almost like doubling down on this slightly protracted position, but then you're missing all this margin of being able to tighten your lat at the start of the pull. So then again, you get really strong lat, and as soon as you go from here into either a slightly further forward position, or even if it's just a miscue, you think, right, there's 400 on the bar, I need to really tighten my lats up now. You've just spent a full 8-week training cycle, and then your lat was thinking, do you know what I mean? So they're changing. The cue at your start, you can see. I know you say it's thinking, you can see it, yeah.
I recorded myself on a tripod video, it was like,
no, it's very minute. It's more from a standpoint of like what your pelvis is doing at the start. Like it just looks locked in at the start when you're pulling yourself in. From a standpoint of cueing that glute, you can definitely see the stability there, 100%.
I can just my feet, my hamstrings, just create this like, and I pull. Whereas before it was just like quad.
But it is literally, it's like pushing off and then throwing it to your hamstring and saying, right, you fucking deal with it.
That's what was happening.
Sorry, that way, going that way. Well. Okay, right, relax. Okay, on the side. Okay. Yeah, it's fairly equal though. If you do the same again, please, pal. Yeah, for the amount of muscle that you've got, you have got very good ribcage control, and you've got the rotation through it. Like you've obviously cued for things like your serratus and the protraction of it. But again, it's just thinking about the opposite end of the scale, where if you've got rotation that way, you need to be cueing just as much rotation that way as well. And like I said, these are the things that for you, you're so sensitive to the way in which you apply output, that you've got to be balancing that. This is the thing, your correctives can just be bodybuilding exercises, as daft as it sounds like. It's just when you rotate them out, do you know what I mean? Every time you play your cards and think, oh, this is a sick cycle, I'm going to get so fucking strong from it, immediately think, right, what's the consequence of doing that? What can I put in place to remedy it, do you know what I mean? Rather than just being like, full send everything, you know?
I'll do
Yep. Cue the glutes at the top, Shane. Yep. And make sure those hips are coming through. That's it. There you go. That's better. Yep. Exercises for you would be that I would get you to put in is prioritise a shortened glute position. For literally a 1-to-1 ratio, at least 1-to-1, if not more, for all the exposure that you have in a deep hip flex position. Anything that neurally stimulates you in that position, whether it's unilateral work, cueing, like you still want to be there, but you're still lengthening your glute, you need to be balancing it out from a shortened position. So even if you do just isometrics through back extension and then dynamic reps through your hip thrust, it would still help lock it in. Corrective exercise, cue-wise, you tightening your glutes and your hamstrings at the start, I'd be bob on. But just having that little bit more rotation that you said at the top. And then in terms of your lat, I'd literally just get freakishly strong on a unilateral row again.
Or just a dumbbell unilateral?
Literally single arm row. I'd maybe do croc row style, rather than knee supported, bodybuilder style. And at first create the rotation, and then towards the end, as you start to increase the intensity of your peak, you resist your rotation. Do you know what I mean? So whereas you might be here pulling across and then going like that, as it starts to get heavier and you get closer to the peak, you want to be coming down and not letting it pull you that way. Do you know what I mean? And using that lat to, it's like eccentric rate of force development versus concentric rate of force development. You need to be able to almost throw it. Watch how the.
You can kind of just row, hold, and then.
Yeah, exactly. Look at. It's funny, like you talked about the Olympic weightlifting thing before. The Chinese weightlifters love single arm rows, but watch how they do them. They fucking rag them off the floor and then they catch it for a split second at the bottom, and then they go down again. So you're not getting the eccentric like mechanical tension.
Biceps.
But no, exactly. But you're getting the lat going like screaming. Catching, so like I said, the eccentric RFD is so high, but they're not getting the stimulation from hypertrophy, do you know what I mean? So I'd throw them in, definitely.
It's interesting that all this stuff's come about since dropping my lat work.
Yeah. It's almost like having strong lats is a big, like it's the highway between your.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like you said before, though, I still have strong lats. It's just that neurologically they're just obviously not functioning during the complex patterns that they're supposed to. And like you're saying with that glute and QL issue, I've accidentally removed that from my programming without really realising. Hopefully if I sort the glute, QL will go. And if I just bring my lats back in and get some rotation going as well. Because that's what I was looking for today, so thank you.
Yeah, no, Sam, of course.
Appreciate it.
So just wrapped up pretty much a full day of assessing Mr. Shane Jaman. Some pretty interesting results, as you'll have seen in the video. So finding from a structural standpoint, as I kind of said right at the start, there's no real compensations that you can see in those types of tests. There's a little bit of tension and tightness in his hip flexors that will be causing a little bit of inhibition in some movements, but he's just so good at and so versatile as an athlete that he can kind of work his way around that, do you know what I mean? So when we provoked a little bit further through the stability test, highlighted quite a sizable imbalance in the stability of his left glute med relative to his right. Now it's interesting at the start he'd said that he thought it was the other way around from right glute to left QL, but we found that the stability was the issue. For people like Shane, strength is never really the problem. He can produce a lot of force in a lot of different movements. It's the ability to control it. So went from there into some gait mechanics work and some unilateral stuff, and most of the tests confirmed what we thought, which was that frontal plane issue, that little bit of a lack of stability on that left side is manifesting itself in other exercises. Brought that through. Showed him a few correctives, so things like Copenhagen planks. Strengthening his lateral line as a whole will be valuable, but bringing it through onto his deadlift, you could see how a lot of the inhibition that he had in an aspect of a limited stability was actually hindering his execution as well. So he had really good start position and the mechanics were spot on, but he was just limiting the range of motion that he would get in a shortened position on his glute. So we've recommended some back extensions, hip thrusts, and ironically a lot of the stuff that he actually had in his plan in the first place to bring that back in. So from a summary for the prescription that you should see in his training, and you can all call him out if he doesn't, is some rotational work through his lats, so single arm rows should be brought back in, back extensions and hip thrusts to strengthen his glutes in a shortened position, and then Copenhagen, some frontal plane work, windmills and suitcase carries. I'll probably throw in some other things for him to do, but you can call him out if he doesn't do all of those on his training. So yeah, it's just an honour to work with someone like Shane. He's an absolute specimen of an athlete, and hopefully that will be the end of some fragile hips and he'll start slinging some heavy deadlifts again. So.
Right, so I'm pretty buzzed with today. It was the opposite as what I thought. I thought it was right side glute med, left side QL, but it's the opposite. And John's giving me some exercises that basically I got everything that I wanted out of this. I wanted to know what the fuck was going on. I wanted to get some exercises that I can implement as assistance to correct it. And I wanted him to take a quick look at my deadlift positioning that I'd changed. He's done all that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. I wanted to bring John on again because his S&C knowledge is real high in his understanding of fascial lines and basically the principles of compensation that strength athletes go through. It's really high, and I needed somebody that could take a look at me objectively and give me the correct advice because like I said before, I just struggle to do it to myself. It's much easier when I've got someone that's like fucking paying me and I'm making a bit of a project. Myself, I'm kind of bottom of the barrel priority, so it ends up being a bit of guesswork and trying this, trying that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the content and learned something. If you're into strength and conditioning or strongman, make sure you subscribe and go for our other videos. And we're gonna have loads of more content coming soon. So subscribe so you can make sure you see it as soon as it's released. In a bit.